Children's stories, not for children. These stories are about children and not for children. Viewer discretion is advised.
Ashley Zhao, Cleveland, Ohio. Ming Chin came to America in search of a better life, along with her husband, Ling Zhao. The Asian couple would open up Ing's Asian Cuisine in North Canton. It was a family-owned and operated Asian restaurant. By this time, the couple had two small daughters. One of their daughters was Ashley Zhao. Ashley was 5 years old. Chin would probably describe her as a bad child, a troubled child, to the point where the Department of Human Services had to intervene. Ashley, under 5 years old at this point, had blows to her head and abdomen. Now, I do not know if Ashley was removed from the home, but we do know that if the parents are willing and they follow it certain type of stipulations, like parenting classes, they can receive their child back. And we also know that unfortunately some of these kids do fall through the system. Ashley was giving so much problems to Ming Chin that she ended up sending her to go stay with her paternal grandparents. So that would be her husband's parents. Now, some articles say that the child had went to stay in New York, while an actual video I saw suggested that Ashley went to go stay in China for a little over a year with her paternal grandparents. When she returned back in October of 2015, Ming Chin said that Ashley was even more disobedient. If she didn't get her way, she would push her sister. At this point, Chin was already stressed out with not only the raising of her two small daughters, but she had to run an restaurant that was pretty much 24/7 operation, is what she said. And she was really stressed out. She said the restaurant had came with great responsibilities. Now, I had actually looked at interviews with Ming Chin, and Chin, I believe, really had a detachment for her daughter. I really do think, and if you look at the interviews, they can be found on the internet anywhere. If you look at these interviews, you will see that she really just isn't close to her daughter. They haven't had a bond with her daughter. Analyzing this, I would believe that Zin was emotionally absent. The mother was not fully there with her child. She showed little or no interest in her before or even after her death. Maybe she had been a little depressed. Maybe she had small bouts with post-traumatic stress syndrome. Who knows? But she didn't show any type of remorse even. They do say that an emotional absent parent is exhausted, and she did say that she was stressed. It was great responsibility. It was a lot of work to do, and she basically had to run the restaurant. Perhaps Chin herself didn't have a close parent growing up. Maybe she wasn't close with her own parents, especially her mother. So if you don't have anything to represent, you somewhat can't even know what to even mimic after. But she would also blame a lot of the situations with Ashley Zhao on her own self. I'll get to that in a minute. So when Ashley returned back to Ohio, October of 2015, again, Chin said she was even more disobedient than when she left. January of 2016, a year later, she would call her husband and tell her husband basically that she had killed Ashley, and she told her husband to come and take care of it. Her husband then came and he took care of it. So they would then call the police and say that this 5-year-old little girl went missing. Maybe she ran away. Maybe somebody snatched her. Flyers would be put up around the surrounding areas. Ashley Zhao was missing. The police would ultimately get a search warrant and search the properties of her husband, Ling Zhao, and Mimi Chen, and they would find out that little Ashley Zhao was put in a salt container on the property. Now, during the interrogation, Zin would say over and over again that she did not know what had happened to Ashley. Finally, she would say, quote, "I just killed her and then she died," unquote. She repeated that twice. The officer asked her, how did she do it? What did she do to end her daughter's life? He even asked her, did she use anything? Which she said no. She balled her fist up and she hit the table and she said, "I just killed her and then she died." So basically she hit her and she passed away. And then her husband came and took the body and brought the body to the family's restaurant. And they left it there. She had no remorse. She had no feelings about what just had happened. Watching the interview was a little strange and bizarre to me. The interrogator even asked her, "How come you're not crying?" To where she responded, "I have no more tears left." But she didn't even cry then. She was, I guess, trying to allude to the fact that maybe she had cried all beforehand. But if you know that you are abusing your child, you wouldn't cry when the child ultimately dies. Her behavior can be known as a psychopathic mother. A mother that doesn't see her child as a person, but more or less as a possession, one to only meet the mother's needs. The mother can be very overwhelming, very controlling, very antagonizing towards the child. She will give the child, again, little or no affection or attention, no type of physical touching in a good way, just absolutely nothing. The interactions and the only affection that she would give would only be to soothe the mother's ego. She cannot let the child grow normally. She will have to mold the child into what she wants. And during this time, no matter what is going on, the mother will show or have no empathy towards the child. autopsy reports would show that she basically beat this child to death. She didn't use weapons. She used her boiled fist. She used her hands. She used her knees. She used her legs. She used her feet. She beat this child to death in her kitchen the morning of January 2016. This is what she did. And then she called her husband and told him, come take care of it. And that was it. I can probably see her criticizing her daughter, screaming and yelling, again, showing no love, no attention. The only type of touching was the physical abuse. She was more than likely emotionally absent towards this child. She ignored this child. This child was only 5 years old. She ignored this child, terrorized this child, and isolated this child. Everything this child did, she was going to blame it on this child. Now, there was another little girl in the household as well by the name of JoJo. She is the one that she said her daughter Ashley was pushing JoJo when she didn't get her way. I wouldn't be surprised if JoJo may have been physically abused. Who knows? Or if she wasn't, then she probably would have been. But everything that Ashley would have done from that point on would have always resulted in a beating because her mother, again, just wasn't emotionally attached to her. I don't think she really liked or cared for this little girl at all. So after Zin committed her filicide, the act of a parent killing a child, her husband again comes and cleans up the mess. Now, before this even happened, a month prior to the police finding out that this was going on, they actually left a message on their website or their webpage on Facebook. And I can't say what it said verbatim, but they basically said that they were not opening up the store that day, that they were both feeling unwell. It's because they knew the police were closing in on them and the charade was up. They was about to find out that the daughter was dead and not missing. During the interrogation, Chin said, quote, "I need to take care of everything. And I only have 2 hands. I am not 4-hand girl," unquote. So she told this to the investigators. Again, she's acting like her being so overwhelmed in this restaurant basically is why Ashley was abused in such a fashion. She said, quote, "I don't want to do that to Ashley, but you can't control yourself sometimes," unquote. So yes, she was more than definitely out of control that morning that Ashley lost her life. Ashley had got abused many times beforehand, but that day was the day where the fatal blow was put on Ashley and she couldn't take it, and Ashley would lose her life in that kitchen, and they just disregarded her. You don't even disregard a pet in that manner. You at least take the pet outside and you bury it. They put this baby in a salt water container and they put it in the restaurant. Out of sight, out of mind, I guess, or at least out of their house. Ling Zhao, the father, he would turn on his wife and testify against her. Therefore, he got a sentence of 12 years in prison with the possibility to be released at 6 years testifying against her. He also pled guilty to obstructing justice and abuse of a corpse. Their daughter, JoJo, at this point was a ward of the state, but she ultimately, they said, would go live with relatives that she had in New York. Now, during Chin's trial, I saw bits and pieces of it. Again, she didn't really seem remorseful. She did have a translator there for her, and she said through the translator that she wanted to be a better person and that she was sorry to everybody that Ashley had died. Chin's sentence was reduced from murder to manslaughter, so she will have to do 22 years in prison. When she gets out, she will be deported back to China because she was an illegal immigrant here anyway. The judge had said that by this time, the remaining living daughter, Jojo, will be old enough to protect herself against her own mother. Ashley Zhao, the week of this trial, would have turned 6. She wasn't able to turn 6 because her vicious, abusive mother terrorized her to the point that she ended her life in the kitchen in January of 2016, and her very obedient father took the body and hid it like she didn't even exist. But we know that Ashley did exist. So Ashley, you were here once. You didn't quite make 6, but you lived here 5 years. And now we all know that Ashley Zhao, she was here. It scares me looking at your pictures because you only had the one picture that was on the missing flyer, the one picture that looked like it was fading away. But you won't fade away from my memory. I know that you were here, Ashley. Rest in peace, Ashley.